You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I am Jared. I'm here with Britt. What's up, Britt?
Hello, hello.
So today we are talking about the children of Superman and Wonder Woman, because actually they've had quite a few throughout the DC multiverse, and this is one of the concepts that was hilariously rumored to have been the plan if Soul had the opportunity to continue the run, which was so great. You would have had, I think it was like Donna Troy from the future who comes back in time, which I believe is the basis behind one of your stories, Britt. And then she like saves the world or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right. So I'm just getting the PowerPoint all opened up, and then we can get started. Okay, let me swap displays. Okay, so we are starting with. All right. Beginning with Jonathan Kent II and his siblings from the Kingdom Come universe. Yep. This one was super dope. I love this storyline.
I do too, mostly because Kingdom Come is the golden egg of DC.
Mhm.
This is a story that pretty much when we keep, referring to, and actually, side note, we should definitely review the documentary because so
Mhm.
many people have not, of course, because it's factual, so many
Mhm.
people are ignoring that.
Mhm.
But what the DC documentary said was basically Kingdom Come saved DC, not only DC, but the comic industry of the 90s.
Mhm.
Because you had Death of Superman that pretty much crashed everything with the gimmick
Thanks, Jurgens.
and made everything basically like edgy. You know how they say New 52 was edgy? Okay, go back to the 90s.
Yeah.
Go back to Death of Superman is the edgy story because it's nothing but a brawl, a mindless brawl. And you you have this story that is basically criticizing that Kingdom Come was, an answer to this, that yeah, it was an old guard type trying to be a little preachy, but at the same time, it was that, okay, you're going too far with the edginess. You're going too far with, you know, the heroes aren't heroes, they're anti heroes. And, you need to have the balance. And so the old guard, which is Superman and Wonder Woman, comes back and basically rile up the little anti hero kids and put everything back together. And
Well,
the thing is,
not only that, because remember, and people bring up about how Superman and Wonder Woman being together is not. With her, he forgets his humanity. She's the one that brings him back to humanity in this storyline.
exactly, this story really solidifies, and we talked about this, Diana's role, her important role as the main female, hero, heroine, and everything like that, is that she is very much important to, she's the mother of superheroes. And, her literal or metaphorical or whatever husband is Superman, and she's the one that keeps him together. She's the one that pushes him to be the hero that he's supposed to be. And yeah, his humanity, the thing is, a lot of people want to say, well, the fans or whatever, that his humanity is based on one person, which is Lois. And it's like, okay, so then you have, if she's out the picture, then you're saying that he isn't the hero that we supposedly, know and love. And he's basically Omni-Man, you know. That is
Which
why we have these evil Superman plot lines, because it's like, if he doesn't have a love interest, then he doesn't have any motivation to be the hero.
Well, not only that, because here's the thing about Kingdom Come: it's not the death of Lois that makes Superman step away from humanity. It's their embrace of Magog murdering the Joker, and he's like, you know what? I clearly failed in my job. I'm done. I'm out. It's not the death of Lois that causes that
Awesome.
disconnect. It's
Right.
hilarious, the type of revisionism that surrounds this story, because, and here's why. I think it's partly because of Injustice, because what Injustice told people is that if Lois Lane dies, even though it wasn't just the death of Lois that made Superman go down that path, but my point is, people simplistically think that if Lois Lane dies, that is what makes Superman abandon humanity.
Right. Injustice is basically Bizarro, um, Kingdom Come. It
Yeah.
it's the entire story, but it switches everything around. Diana is a manipulator. She's the one that pushes him instead of helping him and bringing him back from the edge. She pushes him. So you have this story that, and the thing is that it's admitted by Tom Taylor that really Diana isn't Diana. You had to write her as someone totally different from who she is. And that's why honestly she should be like Maxima or Cersei in disguise or something like that. Because that this iteration that has become popular, in a very wrong way, has made it seem like Diana is this, you know, like bad femme fatale type um female character in disguise or something, and that when she's with Clark or when Clark is with her, that his humanity is, taken away, which is never true.
In fact, you know
um
what I would do? If they brought me in and said, Jared, we'd like you to write Injustice now. Take Injustice from where it is now and move it on. I would retcon it. I would have it a reveal that Diana was actually Cersei the entire time, who had swapped places with Diana. Then you have the classic DC Diana show up in this world now, because we can say she was swapped before the Injustice thing even started. So imagine she shows up, and yeah, while you were gone, Clark became a dictator.
yeah, and she's been imprisoned or something like that,
Yeah,
been fighting
exactly.
her way, something like that. So going on to you know with how Injustice has basically tainted this story, Kingdom Come, because at first it was post crisis, it was the future of DC. But now they want to, demonize it in a way and make
Hmm.
it seem like this is a bad future, that it shouldn't happen. But the thing is, yeah, a lot of bad happens within the story, but they're older. It's 20 years, 20, you know, years into the future. You know, things happen. They have crisis storylines all the time, and you don't actually see the consequences. When they have the crisis, everything like goes back to normal, like it never even happened. But
And
within this story,
mhm.
things happen. The consequences are felt, is shown, and then they build back up to a new beginning. And that's what this story is about. It's about, the consequences of the 90s edginess and the violence and all that. And then you change it to how it's supposed to be, and they start over. And that's what Jonathan pretty much represents, is a new beginning.
Yeah, exactly. And and this is why we should probably review Kingdom Come at some point in the future. Because here's the thing about this story, also from the perspective of this show. This is where I think the Super Wonder like ship really got like its steam, like really picked up, because this showed essentially, first off, it's a universe without Lois Lane, so it's automatically a better universe. But it's also the idea that, see, here's why I liked it. For here's what Diana brings to Clark, and Clark brings to Diana, is that they, in fact, ironically enough, make each other more human because they provide a certain check on each other. Because remember, once again, Clark leaves humanity because he's so like jaded and they embrace the murder. Then Diana herself comes to him and says, "Hey, listen, dude, you got to come back. Your things are picking up." And you may notice when she first sees Clark, she says, "Hello, Clark." And I say that because for some reason, certain part of the fan base, many of the closest fan base, thinks that Diana only calls Superman Cal. And I'm like, no, that is objectively false.
It's objectively false, but there's nothing wrong with it. Honestly, I prefer her to call him Cal because
It's a pet
in the
name.
and in the perspective of him being, who he is as honoring his birth right and his heritage, call him by his birth name. I mean, Clark, I understand why, but to me, just because of who Diana is and how unique she is and the unique perspective she gives, yes, have her call him Cal.
It works for me. It definitely works. And the thing about this storyline is, again, she brings him back to humanity. She restores his. So if you want to say that the Lois Lane that like his humanity is like destroyed by the whole event, yes, that's fine. She brings it back, and even though Wonder Woman is like, hey, listen, dude, we may have to kill a lot of these people because they won't abide by the program. And even Superman, to his credit, is like, no, we don't do that. We're superheroes. We're not executioners. And the thing about it is, again, Clark is still acting like classic Superman despite all the stuff that has happened. And Diana, yeah, it makes sense that she would advocate for, to a certain degree, killing because she's a warrior. That's who she is.
Not only that, but it's the thing that every step that she tried the peaceful route. And it's kind of like once she was stripped of her title as the ambassador, the princess, and the champion of her people, it felt like, okay, now she has to go to the extreme because Clark isn't listening to her. She, everything was taken away from her, and the world is basically, getting worse. So now she has no choice. And that's the thing. Her killing is always the last resort choice. It's never her first option. And with this story, that was her last option. At first, it was like imprisoning, them. And then, yeah, it was like, we have to have bloodshed to stop this. And the thing is, so many people, it's like they don't want to read the story
Mm-mm.
and comprehend it at all. You
Or
have it, and especially, uh-huh.
they don't. It's partly they don't want to read it, or if they've read it, they don't want to actually admit that maybe it contradicts their perceptions of these characters because we're dealing with. And Sam Lears said this when we interviewed him. He said people are attached to whatever era got them into comics. They don't want to admit that, like, a lot of these stories, like everyone says you have to read as a DC, oftentimes contradicts their perception of these characters.
Yeah, because they end up with headcanons, and it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like you want your headcanon to be fact, and then when you read the actual story, it doesn't align with what you think, and you get mad at the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but then there's a thing of DC though. They fuel this type of behavior because they end up, falling into that trap though. You have these stories and when you revisionist, you know, history and stuff. So you validate that those misconceptions, like with Superman, this whole what decades or whatever, you've stripped him of his uniqueness. You've made it seem like, yeah, calling him by his Kryptonian name was bad. You've made it seem like, he is only if he isn't with Lois, he isn't human or he doesn't have his humanity. Um, if he's, you know, doesn't wear, even down to if he doesn't wear the trunks, it's like
Mm-hmm.
he isn't Superman. That's how petty.
Or the S curl.
Yeah, that's how petty things have become with with the nitpicking and the cherry picking and stuff of what these fans expect, or that he can't have any other emotion other than smiling or something, or the nowadays it's that he has to be the nice guy and the himbo type thing.
Oh my
And it's
God.
kind of like, no, where is the complexity of this character? Where is the, like I said, the consequences and the actual, you know, you want these characters to resonate with a new audience, and yet when they don't feel anything, when the audience doesn't feel anything, it's like, what's the point? They aren't invested, and
Exactly.
that is DC's problem. You want them to invest in something that you keep forcing. You keep forcing the same thing. You keep telling the fans what they should accept, what they should like, but everyone has a different opinion, everyone has a different perspective, a different preference. And you have the multiverse, use it, instead of
Exactly.
having the multiverse, but at the same time you have the same status quo within the multiverse, which is it
Yeah,
it
I'm like
basically
the premise of the multiverse and concept. By the way, not only do you have it, you invented it. You have this concept where you can have all these different versions of these characters that act slightly different or extremely different, and you don't use them, or you use them and make them act exactly as they are in the prime universe. I'm like, well, what is the point of it being an else worlds is the key word here if you're
right.
not going to use the multiverse concept.
Right. And then we also had, with New 52,
Mhm.
how New 52 Superman was so quote unquote hated because he
No, he
didn't act
wasn't.
like he supposedly didn't act like the real Superman. What is the real Superman? Actually, 1986 Superman, Burn Superman wasn't the real Superman. The OG is Golden Age, which New 52 was. He was a modern day golden age. And if you couldn't handle that he was much more down to earth. He was much more, actually going through things that people didn't accept him, easily. And yeah, he wasn't so quick to be, I'm just this American human, normal person. And going back to the golden age, the Kents, they were dead, or he
Mhm.
was an orphan, or he had it was a motorcyclist or whatever that took him in or something like that. These different iterations within the golden age, New 52 was still way more aligned with that than post crisis.
and
And
and it's like,
uh-huh,
even going back to that DC documentary, and yeah, the amount of times that we reference this damn thing, we might as well do an episode on it. But the point is that even ironically, in the Batman portion of that video, what it brought up with the Batman 66, and it applies to the exact the reason why I'm referencing the Adam West Batman, because what was said in that documentary actually applies to all DC characters. The thing about this, what the 66 Batman show showed them, if you will, is that you can have all of these different versions of these characters, and the character itself will survive. You can have a more campy Batman, more campy Superman, more campy Wonder Woman, or you can have these darker, down to earth versions of these characters, and they're still the character.
right. Um, but think with Adam West, I think that has pretty much at first it was, I guess, Batman was going to be canceled at that time too. Like it went a little bit too overboard with the campiness.
But my
And
point is that
but
the character has not faded from obscurity. We still
exactly.
talk about Batman.
Right. But honestly, it has aged pretty well though.
Mhm.
Like it
Pretty
at
well.
first at first it was going to be the downfall of Batman, but for some reason Batman, bounced back and now he's like the cash cow, the golden goose, golden egg, of DC. But with Superman, that is Reeve Superman, and you have you know it's the first movie, I'll say, aged well, but the sequel and the other parts of it has not. And that is the one thing that has pretty much, with how Batman leveled up, with bounce back with Adam West, it's like Superman has just went downhill from
Oh,
the, you know,
you should have
from that
seen it.
time.
I was in a stream with Nerdette's Newsstand. You should have seen the look on everyone's faces when I reminded them that in Superman 2, Christopher Reeve because we were talking about the Man of Steel Zod neck snap, and I said, wait a second, you guys are aware that Reeve Superman killed Zod and Feora and whoever the hell the other guy was in Superman 2, right? And they were like, wait, what? And I explained to them all the different circumstances, like depowering them, crushing Zod's hand with a grin on his face, and punched him across the Fortress of Solitude into a crystal wall. Yeah, he's dead.
Right there, but the thing is that they look at the campiness of it, or
Mm-hmm.
look at, like I said, it's the very superficial, surface level type thing. As long as he's with Lois, as long as he has the red trunks, any problematic thing is just fine. I saw even on Twitter when they were talking about my adventures of with Superman, it was like, yeah, the writing is kind of underwhelming. It's not, just top notch, and it does have problems. The villains are underwhelming. It is problematic, but because they have the certain relationship, and because Clark is written as, like I said, the himbo, the nice guy, that it's acceptable. It's like, no, no,
It's not.
that's not acceptable, because if you keep this going, then DC, that's how this character remains stagnant. That's how this character remains in the same place that he's in, where it's basically middle road average of, you can't go too far of modernizing him in a sense of, um challenging him, but then you can't keep him so far in this state to where you lose the popularity. And you see that constantly, that Superman really has lost and continue to lose popularity, and only is basically becoming a um just a very small bubble type, you know, um character.
Because really, until like you watch like Man of Steel or like explain like the new 52, you realize that the general audience sees Superman as a joke. I'm sorry, that's just the way it works. It was kind of funny. I was on a stream with a buddy of mine. I'll send you it when we get out of this. But so someone comes on and they talk about how the new 52 was a bad idea and should be like completely eliminated. Everything the new 52 did. And I'm like, even Court of Owls. And he goes, yeah, of course, because it. And then this person brought up about how it like crashed and burned, and I'm like, actually it didn't in terms of sales. And it was like, and then when they talked about Superman and Wonder Woman, I said it was the top seller of the new 52. Then of course they resort to, well, the whole initiative failed, and I'm like, okay, no, it actually didn't. But I didn't want to prolong an argument because it was supposed to be like honoring a buddy of mine who was on YouTube for 5 years, so I'm cool with that. But that's my point here. It's like, where people, for some reason, these fans think that just because they didn't enjoy it, then it failed. And I'm like, you're not the only one reading these books. You do realize that,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. It's, if I don't like it, then it's a failure. It's the whole shipping thing of the no chemistry of the they're like siblings or something like that. It's these type of um accusations that's kind of like, okay, all you have to say is I don't like it, and ignore it.
Yep,
But
that's fine.
instead you come up with these lies and come up with these, false narratives and everything. And then, like I said, DC, they fuel this because they, basically cower out, and you ignore what actually sold. New 52 was very controversial in a sense of, in the sense of it challenged, what people expected. And yes, it wasn't perfect, because even within the in regards to the creativeness, it was miscommunication. Editorial was very toxic, it was. But it still did its job, which is brought in new fans. It did save the industry in DC
And in
because
fact, that's why on my show, whenever like someone says that the new 52 is a failure, and I'm like, let's examine the goals of the initiative, shall we? Revitalize DC in terms of like start fresh. Okay, did that. Check. Bring new fans into DC. Check. Those were its two stated goals. So, if it met its two stated goals and in a lot of cases exceeded them, actually was a huge success.
yes, and even with Rebirth was supposed to revitalize the line and everything, and but it was basically like a, those one hit wonder type, uh back down memory lane type nostalgia fest, things. That's basically what Rebirth was. And it didn't bring in the new fans. It made their history, more convoluted. It made everything such a mess. And the fact of you targeted a fan base that pretty much did nothing but support the books.
hmm
But your sole thing was jabbing at a fan base, New 52, Superman. And the thing is, with these writers, especially Jurgens and Tomasi. Tomasi actually, I believe, was an editor for Kingdom Come.
hmm
And it's like, if you know that this story has was DC's golden egg, top seller, everything. And then the relationship of Superman and Wonder Woman was one of the elements that really, you know, made it successful too. Why would you destroy that within
And
the
by
new
the way,
52?
remember back when this story came out, and then we'll move on. But still, I want to bring this up. Back when this story first came out, there was no multiverse. This was the future of DC.
Exactly.
No
Yeah,
one, no one remembers that.
I think they do. It's just the fact that no, it's actually they do. It's the fact that they do know that it scares them. That,
hmm
like I said, their narrative of Clark has to be with Lois. He's not even, he can't even be immortal anymore or live up to 1,000. He has to age normally in order, like, if Lois dies at 60 or something,
hmm
he has to die at 60. How they are trying to put legacy characters and make these characters older. Clark and Diana aren't supposed to age. As a Kryptonian,
Mm-mm.
he isn't, his DNA does not change.
As
So as
long
a
as there's a yellow sun, he'll be fine.
exactly. So with Kingdom Come, you do see within 20 years they are um a little bit older. He does have the gray temples. He does, look older, but he's stuck pretty much as like, I don't know, maybe 45 or something. Diana, the only she starts aging when she gets pregnant. So, um and then we see the 1,000-year timeline that she dies probably at year 500, between 500 and 1,000, and he's very much older man when the Legion is formed.
Well, and
So
also, if you look at the picture here, it looks like it's a red sun at that point, so that makes sense.
yeah, at this point, I believe Earth is now kind of destroyed. Now it's kind of like
hmm
it's had its time, so they're now moving on to another planet or something like that. Yeah, so now he's older, and that is very much a more natural life for an alien, for a goddess, that's their life. And yeah, we see, even with these panels, how much more human they are, in a sense of they have children. They have five. The Jonathan is named, the other four is not, but we can think of their names. They seem like they have different power sets or something like that, but that is something that can be explored. That they basically had a Justice League of their own, you know. Um, you see that they live the life of trying to care for Earth, you know, with the time that it had, and they, raise their kids to be the next planet universe protectors. So yeah, going back to when you say that Clark and Diana, when they're together, aren't human, they're very much human in their hearts. Biological sense, no, they're not. They're not regular human mortals, but they aren't gods either. They are very much just in between. But like we said, we see them, have a much more human life instead of Clark when he, I think Tom King wrote it where he gave Lois immortal juice, and only
Of
Lois and
course.
John, were alive, but he basically let Earth die. you know,
Yeah, that works too. Thank you. The
yeah.
amount of
How
times that
human is that?
DC has had Clark put other people at risk in honor of Lois is just stupid. But anyway, moving on. So AKO, we've talked about this one before, but I will say I like this little character sheet because the character is like going, "Here are my parents. They're not from around here."
Right. So this was really cute. Project ACO is it at first it's from 1980. At first it was supposed to be like an adult anime, but as the process of developing it, it was basically just a parody of different characters. So her villain, the villainess or whatever, rival of Aiko is actually Tony Stark's daughter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So is in and actually Aiko, as its time, and even it's like Superman and Wonder Woman as a concept, it really is ahead of its time.
hmm
And with Aiko especially, it you have the cartoon, the anime that subtly has Clark wearing the glasses. He's reading a newspaper that has Daily Planet on it, and
hmm
then Diana, even though she's kind of like brown hair or blonde, she has the apron that has, the stars on it and everything. And but the actual comic, the spinoff, that kind of gives more detail. It has them actually saying, I'm proud, Clark, I'm proud of our daughter. And he says, yeah, we did, good, Diana. And then you have them, it's one scene where they are having like a family dinner, and Clark starts crying because Aiko takes his steak or lobster or something, and Diana tells him not to be a baby. And yeah, so it's so cute. This is the type of storytelling. Again, you think that Clark and Diana not Clark and Diana being together isn't human, but yes, they do have these very human moments on an extraordinary level. You have this daughter that is her power set is basically golden age, where she runs fast, she can leap, leap in a single bound or whatever. Um, Very strong. She has the bracelets on, the gauntlets.
I see that.
Um, and she also, in the anime, she uses a sword. Uh, yeah, it is really, really fun, and it's very a comedy. And this is one of the animes that actually people also started, shipping Superman and Wonder Woman, because at the time, even though it was kind of like it wasn't confirmed yet, but you still had these, little hints that they were her daughter, that she was their daughter. It's still like, oh my God, this is how their kid would be. And she's very much more entertaining than John.
hmm
And it also has LGBT cute themes too. and much more. I would say within that time, like I said, it was supposed to be in adult anime, but with what they had within it, it was still very much handled much better than what DC did, in 2022 with Jonathan.
Well, there's a lot that this does that these 2 pages do better than what DC did in 2020.
True.
But yeah,
Yeah.
DC in 2020 was a mess.
Yeah. I mean, John, his whole thing with the age up, I mean, first, his whole conception is just totally, um, it, it screwed up everything, trying to force him within in the main line and everything, especially just to be a playmate for Damien. And now Damien is more independent, you know, so John, he doesn't really have a place. And pretty much Tom Taylor actually admitted that they wanted it, to announce him being bisexual as a gimmick. It was a publicity stunt.
And it
And
came
it's like,
off as
wow.
that.
And it was. It's kind of like, wow, you actually admitted that. They want to the lowest fans, closest lens, antis of Superman and Wonder Woman. You say that New 52, their relationship was a publicity stunt or it was a gimmick. But no, it wasn't. It was actually something that was real, that actually was explored. Yes, it was rushed in the first part. I would say within John's, you know, with um it could have had more build up, but it was a Justice League book, so and they
What they could
had
have
the
done was have the Superman and Wonder Woman book going concurrently, not have them be together yet, but have them like going on like individual team adventures separate from the league. Then you can kind of have through like inner dialogue and stuff them slowly falling in love with each other. Then you get to Justice League 12.
yeah, or even have flashbacks of,
Mhm.
even if they are together within the book, have them reminisce on their flashbacks and flesh it out a little bit more. They
Mhm.
could have made it work. So it's still, although it was rushed because it was within the Justice League book and he was it was basically like planting everything and then it goes off on its own to be explored. I honestly think that Charles probably would have done that. Probably would have had, flashbacks and fleshed out their relationship better, but
Yeah,
of
he would have.
course,
I trust Charles Sewell. So there
yeah,
you go. Next up, this one I didn't even know was a thing. Kelly L. The Bizarro World Bring Your Kid to Work Day. So explain what I'm
honestly,
looking at right now.
okay, honestly, I didn't know this one either. When I was doing the research of their children, and I stumbled across this on Tumblr. I'm like, oh, this is like. At first, I thought it was a fan comic,
Hmm.
but then when I saw that it was actually published by DC, I'm like, okay, let me do some research on this. So it was from Bizarro World, 2005, and it was just a one-shot special or something, and you know, and actually within that Bizarro World, and I will send you a link to it. Um, it was a lot of funniness in it, and Superman and Wonder Woman was pretty much hinted within that comic the whole
Hmm.
time. And again, this is 2005. Um, so I guess this is a little story of bring your kids to work day. So you have like I think you have I don't know the other names, but you have Martian Manhunter's kid, you have Flash, you have Batman, just the Justice League's
Even
kids.
Snapper Carr's kid. Jeez.
Yeah, you have these kids, and honestly, Kelly L is a very nice name,
Hmm.
because it goes with Cal. So you
Hmm.
have Kelly. That is a name that it's like, why is DC has um the ideas right in front of them, but they never explore them to the, to the full extent of, their
Hmm.
purpose. So even with Kelly being like a one-off type, um whatever this was, it's still the fact that that planted the seed though of Superman and Wonder Woman having a kid. And especially she has the S curl. She has the Wonder Woman, outfit, the skirt,
Hmm.
and and it's and even her necklace is with the S.
Hmm.
It's such a simple design, as for this little toddler or, preteen. But again, it's so much more interesting than what DC is doing with John, or even with Trinity, you know.
In fact, this could have been a pretty cool kids animated series, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, Bizarro, I think within that time was supposed to be kind of like a funny type, um you can take it seriously, you can not take it seriously, or just have fun. But even Marvel did a a, a movie
Hmm.
of the Avengers kids. And yeah,
Hmm.
I think that was actually out right around the time this comic was out, if I'm not
Should
mistaken.
have. Hang on, I'll check.
It's either, I think it was Young Avengers, or it was 2009 maybe. But yeah, but you still have these
It was 2008.
okay, so this comic was, and that's the thing, DC has these ideas way, before Marvel does. And yet Marvel still capitalizes so quickly on these ideas that DC has. Yes, this could have been changed, could have been adapted to a direct to DVD movie, and
Wait,
you
Britt,
still
are you telling me that DC comes up with great ideas and doesn't capitalize on them? Say it isn't so!
exactly, so pretend to be surprised.
Hmm.
This, so yeah, this is something that I myself, as doing research, was very surprised of. And yeah, I'm a little salty that we don't see more of Kelly um anywhere. This would probably be a very fun little thing for DC to have within the multiverse.
Yep. Next up. All right. This story, I have a very love hate relationship with Act of God. Here's why. Yes, it has SuperWonder, but the story overall is not the best, i.e., so
It's not.
they lose their powers and Diana becomes a stockbroker. She's a diplomat.
She's yeah, this is another story that basically, like, it takes away who these characters are. I think somebody also becomes an alcoholic,
Kyle
and
Rayner.
um Diana also, contemplates suicide,
When she's
and
pregnant.
and then you and Clark, he's just kind of like, does he lose his job or something, or
I think
he
he just
gets
walks away. I think actually Clark is the one that becomes an alcoholic, and Diana all of a sudden becomes a Christian, even though she's seen to be more with the Greek gods.
I
There's a
think
lot in
she's
this
supposed to
story.
be pagan or something.
Yeah, there are a
Yeah,
lot of stuff in this storyline that I'm
very
like,
questionable.
what the hell is up with this?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's an Elseworld story. The cool part is when Lois Lane walks away because she can't handle it. So I'm like, oh, okay, I do like that. But then, yeah, the kid. The other thing that I'm wondering is that why does the kid have powers all of a sudden? I thought all powers were like eliminated by a meteorite. Which, by the way, here's my problem with the meteorite. It takes away like the Green Lantern ring. It takes away powers from stuff it shouldn't be able to take powers away from.
I guess they just didn't want any superpower whatsoever. But again, this pretty much solidifies the point of just because their powers are taken away, it doesn't change their DNA. So the kid represents basically, again, that whole thing opening back up, that Clark and Diana, just because what if they're depowered, or their powers are completely taken away, their DNA never changes. And that is also the thing with Jon within Rebirth, is that he was born because Clark was depowered. They were in a bottled city or something like that. And that's the only way he was, conceived or whatever. But it's like within this whole time though, Kryptonian and human DNA was not compatible. Even Khan
Still isn't.
has yeah, even Khan had supposed to have like different problems or whatever with being a clone of Clark and Lex. Um so with Clark and Diana having kids, Diana is still very much a human woman. She's an earth woman, but she is born of divine, blood. So she's kind of unique, a unique earth woman. So their, compatibility does work out. But it also creates a totally new type, of being. It's not just a half Kryptonian and a half human woman. You have this Kryptonian Amazon demigod type, all this combining at once, and you create a new divinity. And that's what, most of their kids, as we see with Jonathan, from Kingdom Come, he's the protector of hyper time, that he can, time travel, that he has basically like telekinesis, um, type powers. This
Mhm.
kid, he is creating a whole city. He has like a telekinesis type, um, psychic powers or something like that.
Which I'm
Um,
like, how the hell does that work? Because I'm pretty sure Clark and Diana didn't have that. It's kind of odd. That's always like one of my issues with superheroes having kids, that the kids all of a sudden become virtual gods, and I'm like, what?
well, what's explained with Clark and Diana, like I said, is that their combination can create something of its own divinity,
True.
you know,
Okay.
because Diana is blessed by multiple gods. So if you combined all those powers, you can have something just totally, you know, totally different from, the ordinary, just like with Clark. If he's, Clark has all the power. So him having a child with Lois is kind of like, okay, well, the kid is just going to have basic Kryptonian powers, you know. But with Diana being blessed by multiple gods, you don't know what that kid is going to have. You don't know if
True.
that kid is, and I wrote that even with Austria, with how I created her, was she is, you know, this divinity of her own, is that she has lightning powers. She can teleport. She can have heat vision and lightning coming out of her eyes or something like that.
That's
You know,
dope.
she's her powers are still pretty much developing into something that Clark and Diana aren't expecting. And even the gods, they don't expect it because, you know, what are we doing combining all of this together?
That works. I like that. Moving on. Bruce Kent. I believe we briefly talked about this one like a couple episodes ago about this, but explain for everyone that maybe doesn't remember.
Okay, so this story is, of course, apocalyptic, and is basically, I guess everyone has died or something like that. They've, Billy is an adult and he kind of had a relation with Diana for a minute, but he is the main villain within this story. And um, he kills Diana out of jealousy. The world comes to an end. It is basically like a full circle of how Krypton was destroyed. And but before Diana and Clark, they get together, they get married, and have Bruce. And of course, they name him, out of honor of Bruce Wayne. And what I liked about this story was that Martian Manhunter married them off.
Of course.
That was really cute. And another thing about this, honestly, that's the only part I know about this story. Oh, it's also that it says that Lois was his past and Diana is his present and future.
I love that. That's great.
And it's also like he's basically like Clark is basically, moving on. A lot of these Elseworld stories, yes, they they go into the gray areas that a lot of times are never explored. And like we said, within the main line, they don't want to stray away too far. And it's kind of like when they have a crisis event, things, go back as normal as if nothing ever happened. But with these stories, when someone dies, they are, dead for good. And you
Yeah.
have to move on. You have to, build another life or something like that. So within this story, that's what happens. Clark and Diana, they get together. They are, happily married and stuff, and you have a kid. And he also, he's becomes the next Green Lantern. You know,
Sweet. I could see that. What's interesting, you mentioned this, is like you mentioned moving on. When I had Joe M. Sontag on my Indie Wednesday streams, what he brought up, because I asked him about this, I always ask particularly comic book professionals what they think about this. And what he said is, see, I could see Lois Lane dying through like any number of means, like old age or something like that. And then Clark, instead of becoming Injustice, because that wouldn't happen. Even he admitted that. He was like, nope, that wouldn't happen. He does move on with like Wonder Woman and such, because it's like, yes, she's there for him. She's comforting him. And then all of a sudden he realizes, like you said, yeah, you know what? Lois wouldn't want me to constantly obsess around someone who's not around anymore. I need to move on.
I mean, the way Lois is, maybe she would.
Maybe she
You
would,
know,
because that is Lois Lane for you. She has to be the center of everyone's world, even though she's not. She's more like Pluto to Superman.
right.
Or she should be.
So, right. So, um, yeah, it's what I don't like is that so many people say, well, if Lois dies, then he can be with someone else. No, she doesn't have to die. She can, but then Lois's relevance is to be a love interest. So it's like she doesn't have a story if she isn't the love interest. So when you have her in New 52, that it pretty much emphasized on that and showed that she was within the books. Some writers like Gene Yang, like Scott Lobdell, Scott Snyder, you know, they were still stuck in that post-crisis, uh, status quo type thing, and they wanted to have that a little bit and pretty much undermine Clark and Diana's relationship. But it pretty much showed that still Lois's only means is to be a love interest. And it's like, so how independent really is she as a character? And that's
And
pretty
that's a
much
good
why,
point, because again, and I brought this up before, but that's why a lot of these fans don't like the New 52, because it showed that Clark doesn't need Lois to be popular.
yeah. And I mean, Clark, his motivation was, like it said in Justice League 14, his motivation was the Smallvilles around the world.
Mhm.
That his motivation was the people. He became the champion for the oppressed and the people. And that's the thing, is that that has been lost with post crisis because it reduced Clark's motivation to just Lois. And now we have that again where he is, let thousands drown just to take her to the fortress. You know,
Yeah.
he like you said, you don't like the Convergence book that um
He just sits on his ass all day while the
yeah,
anti-monitor is invading.
yeah, even with Tomasi's Rebirth book, how he stayed I think in the basement when it was a storm or something, and he was like,
You should
well,
be
if I
stopping
have
the storm.
yeah, he was like, well, I have my family, and so that's enough for me. I can stay here with you guys, but whatever, let the storm, you know cause destruction if it wants to, but I just have Lois and John, and that's fine. And it's like, no, that's
You're
not what
Superman,
Superman's
bro.
supposed to do.
You're supposed to be ostensibly the Superman, the real Superman. I've seen some people call him the real Superman, and I'm like, you don't even have to be a pro Super Wonder person, because I asked my friend Drew about this, and even he goes, "Yeah, when you think about it, that is like one of the biggest plot holes ever." And to quote the Tomasi Superman run, well, not to quote it on that note, a lot of people admit, yeah, it's not that well written. We just like the Superman raising his son, and I'm like, you literally could have had this if they had gone with the original Charles Soule plan. And we'll talk about that at the end of this episode, because we talk about where that book was originally going.
Yeah, the book isn't aging well, and that's the thing,
No.
is that New 52, it's popular to hate, especially on Twitter. But when people actually read the book, and it's kind of like pulling teeth. It's
Mm-hmm.
like they do not want to admit that New 52 wasn't that bad at all. And Rebirth, and they don't want to admit that Rebirth wasn't that good. It was just them wanting to get rid of New 52.
Mm-hmm. That's
But
all it is. That's all it is.
yeah, but the problems, but the Tomasi run has so many problems, so many, like, especially in a political sense of what it was, you know, framed as, and trying to, like I said, alienate the new fans or alienate the diverse fans of New 52. It was like, well, it was basically, this is your grandfather or great grandfather is back, get off my lawn type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and with also with he didn't really raise John, you know,
Mm-mm.
within that. Um, it was Damien who Tomasi wanted to write the Super Sons, and it was Damien really who was teaching John how to be a hero, how to be, how to fly. Um, it was more so like he wrote Clark, or I think um, Patrick Gleason,
Mm-hmm.
he was writing it too, and it was kind of militarized, like with John saying yes sir, in a sense, in the whole very the two issues that glorified America and demonized, I think was it the Vietnam War?
Mm-hmm. I
And
think so. I didn't read the book, so that's just me.
and I remember seeing so many fans that was so insulted by that. And it was like Tomasi sort of kind of, no, not even sort of kind of, he actually ignored these fan complaints.
Mm-hmm.
because it was, like I said, glorifying America. And within that book, it had so many American flags. Even the
Which,
cover.
to be clear, I'm fine with like 100% glorifying America, but
But you're glorifying the awfulness though. Like you're basically like saying that American can do no wrong. That's
that's
what I'm
where I
saying.
draw the line. Exactly. Thank you, Britt. That's where I draw the line when like you paint this country as like the most perfect place in the world. It's not. I love patriotism as much as the next guy, but first off, I don't necessarily like my media to go all rah 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 because to a certain degree it gets into the whole keep politics out of the books per se, and I'm like I don't necessarily like that either.
Yeah, and even it was one particular part too that he says it was basically a moment where he says that you celebrate celebrities, like you are fans of celebrities but you don't know American history.
Hmm.
Or
To a
it,
degree, he makes a good point though, in that sense.
no, that was definitely like a jab on younger
That's
people,
true.
like
That
younger
is
fans.
100%. And that is to a degree a problem where the younger generation about how people know more about, like, say, the Kardashians more than, like, straight up American history.
Well, that's the thing though, that American history, it-
Oh boy,
when
here we go.
you go back to, it has to be somebody that really is unbiased about it though.
Which
You
that's
know,
true, and to a certain degree, and then we'll pivot back to
yeah,
comics.
go
But
back to
it's like, yeah, to a certain degree, it depends on, you know, like your perspective. But anyway, so we talk about Bruce Kent, which it's a cool idea. I like it. It's kind of, I don't know how I feel about Shazam being with Wonder Woman because even though he's aged up,
it's still kind of
uh
weird. Yeah, it's definitely weird.
it's still kind of DCAU. Like the next one is one that I actually enjoy a lot. The Millerverse children, which I gotta say, there are some things I don't like about this universe.
Oh
But
yeah, I mean,
the kids are great.
the thing that ruins, well, it doesn't ruin it, but it kind of downgrades it, is
Hmm.
that it is a Batman universe. So it is
Yeah.
Batman's perspective. However, the concepts are very interesting. And honestly, you can have so much fun with this universe that the whole Batman thing, especially with um, Dark Knight 3,
Hmm.
how Frank Miller basically he reversed it to more of a Superman perspective. So
Hmm.
the, you know, all of that can be forgiven. So with this universe, for the longest time, I didn't know that All Star Batman and Robin
Oh boy.
was within this universe.
Hmm.
So, and we talked about that of the part where Clark and Diana kiss and they are kind of like have this love-hate relationship or whatever. This,
Which is odd, but when you phrase it as it's from that version of Batman's perspective, it makes sense actually.
yeah, so you have this where Diana is very tough. I would say that she's
They're very
more,
man hating.
I wouldn't even say that because honestly, I think that again, it's from Batman's perspective. And Diana seems very jaded already because I think honestly, Frank Miller should do like how he did Superman Year One. Even that story is now within this universe.
It is,
He
and
should,
it's my problem with that one is that Superman goes from woman to woman within a short amount of time and forgets about the previous woman. So I'm like, what?
well, what it seemed like is that from the interview, it seemed like a lot of like what was supposed to be in the book was not.
Ah, okay.
Like
That makes
Of course,
sense.
editorial.
Hmm.
Of course, editorial, reducing things.
The Justice
But
League's greatest foes, editorial.
right. So so it starts with All-Star Batman and Robin, which everyone is, younger, and um Clark is single, obviously, and he's having this back and forth with Diana. Then in between it, well, Jim Lee said, they are supposed to have a All-Star Batman and Robin 2, but it's just like for some reason it's not happening,
They could do it
or
with the
it's just
Elseworlds label.
it it's not that, it's more so like time and
I see.
kind of like not having the time to do it.
Hmm. I can
Um
see that.
but honestly, it's like, well, you can have different artists, if he doesn't have time to draw all the book, um however many issues it's supposed to be, just have like someone that can um, kind of substitute his art. That's,
Plus the fact
simple.
you can, in this book, have the characters start acting more consistently. In other words, use this as like a transition from All Star to Dark Knight 3, The Master Race, in terms of like tone and how these characters act. Like make it where, since we're not from Batman's perspective anymore, maybe we can kind of have them start acting less aggressive. Wonder Woman not calling people sperm banks per se. That's where I started to get the man hating part in Wonder Woman, where I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel about Wonder Woman calling someone sperm bank.
I mean, she's, kind of
If that's
right.
Batman's perspective, then I'm a little bit concerned about. Well, then again, that version of Batman is a nutcase, which
Yeah.
arguably all versions of Batman are nutcases. But that I'm not really helping my case here. I just realized that. But that's my point there.
Yeah, so with the All-Star, then you go from All-Star to returns, then
Mm-hmm.
strikes again. So within that time, this is when Laura was um conceived and she was hidden away on Amazonia.
Which
Did
that's
that
a terrific idea for like retconning in why the kid didn't play into like Dark Knight 1, because they at least reference Diana in Dark Knight 1 at least.
Yeah, she's hidden away
Hmm.
because I think within that time she's pregnant.
Hmm.
So I this is why we definitely need the sequel of All Star, because it will fill in the blanks of, okay, the first part Clark and Diana kissed, and you can tell that it was kind of like a that their relationship was beginning, or whatever.
Hmm.
And then it kind of just jumps into her having Laura. It's like, okay, so where within that did they actually solidify their relationship? And, um, well, we know in between that, because in Strikes Again, she is 17.
Hmm.
So, you know, you can fill in those 17 years of what happened, why did Diana go back? Which it was answered that the government would, come after her
Hmm.
if they would find out that she was pregnant.
And that's a
And
terrific idea. I
especially,
love that.
and then how did well, we know that Laura, she is very resentful.
Hmm.
She her perspective of humans, the outside world, is very jaded already, as young as she is. So what did she see too that made her feel that way?
That's
And
why. That's why when I think about it, Dark Knight 2 is one of those books where I think it's criminally underrated. That and 3 are like absolutely underrated in terms of like the stuff that they introduce and explain in those books. Like where's Laura been this entire time? Where's the Justice League been? A lot of these books, I feel like they get better with time, or like when you approach them with like a new perspective, it's like, okay, and now I can see where this book is coming from.
right, you can say now you understand what's happening. So now you have her at 17, and
Mhm.
then um with Dark Knight's 2 strikes, you have Clark and Diana, rocking mountains, creating
That's the
earthquakes,
one part
and
where I was like, okay, I get it, Frank. I get it. But it's like
you
they're
know,
like capsizing aircraft carriers, erupting volcanoes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Frank, you're not being subtle, are you?
they definitely make the earth move, you
Yes, I
know.
love that line. I love that Wonder Woman instantly knows she's pregnant. And I'm like, okay,
Honestly, that is the weirdest part because it's like, how do you know? Like, okay,
instantly, because I'm pretty sure it takes a bit for everything to get started. So I'm like, okay.
but I mean, he's super so,
Kryptonian, so there you go. So
you
that's
know,
the way we
and
can explain it. It's Kryptonian.
and then the fact that she also says he can like popularize the whole
Populate an
earth,
entire planet. I'm
populate.
like, oh god.
Yeah, it's like, oh wow, so definitely, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if like if we ever get Dark Knight 4,
hmm
if she's, pregnant again, maybe
Oh
that's
god,
pretty
watch.
much,
She has an entire colony of Kryptonians. That's the Frank Miller version of the Bottle City of Kandor.
yeah, it is.
It's all of his kids.
That is the funniest part. But
Super
so now we
daycare,
go,
Brit. Super daycare.
right. So now we go to the Dark Knight 3, where you're introduced to Baby John. The thing is about John, the name, honestly, they should change his name.
Because here's the thing,
But
particularly if it's with Wonder Woman. I mean, I get why Clark does proposes it because it's a tribute to his father, to his Earth father. It's like, to be clear, I get why they do it. I mean, I guess, I mean, they can't necessarily go Jor because what kid is going to be named Jor? I'm like, I get they want to have the kid be able to have some semblance of a normal life, and naming a kid Jor is not exactly going to work out well. And Zeus
right,
is not going to work, but it's like, I don't know.
you can name him, well, Hunter, as we're gonna get to him, but that is
You could do
a very,
Joseph.
yeah, Joseph is, well, that is Clark's middle name. So yeah, you
True.
can have it as that. But Jonathan, our Jonathan,
hmm
was actually conceived, of course, way before the John of Rebirth.
Yeah.
And
We got
it
it
was,
first, guys. Suck it.
and the thing is, this was a back and forth thing of, I remember Lois fans when this book was announced, when Dark Knight 3 was officially announced. It was announced, I would say maybe a year, 6 months to a year after the convergence, but
hmm
it was still like, okay, go back to Strikes Again, and Diana says she was pregnant.
hmm
So with her having a boy, a child, this book has been, already in the works within this time. So yes, um Jonathan of Millerverse was before John of Rebirth. And actually, no, I take that back. This Jonathan was actually even before Switch It. It was announced before Convergence.
hmm
So it's like it, or within the same time, whatever. But it was still the fact that so many Lois fans was trying to you know, take away saying that um the John name in was Lois and Clark's, son
You
first.
don't own
But
that name. You don't own the copyright.
right, but first they have Kingdom Come, John, Jonathan, that was first, and now they have this Jonathan who was basically 2002. Yeah, it took a while for the third book to come out, but he was still conceived with
Mm-hmm.
2002. So you have Jonathan now. I think he's age 3
Mm-hmm.
in Golden Child, and
He's a remarkably smart kid for a 3-year-old.
yes, Frank Miller called him a baby Buddha, and he is a psychic, which basically he has all the powers, kind of like Raven. Um, he is very powerful. He has nuclear vision. He, I guess he can do the teleportation or something. Um, read minds, and uh, I know that he um communicates with Laura with
Mm-hmm.
telepathy too. So yeah, as said, and even Frank Miller, he says that their kids are the most powerful in the universe, and especially Jonathan. He's just like a whole different entity of his own, um, because of the combination of Clark and Diana. And Frank Miller has always been an advocate, pretty much of like relationship of equals. He um he says it. That's why, Daredevil and Elektra, you know, that they are a, power couple
They are.
and
I
relation,
like that.
you know, um, Batman and Catwoman,
Mm-hmm.
basically supers with supers make way more sense than the um hero and civilian, you know,
Mm-hmm.
cliche trope. So yeah, Miller has um been an advocate for Superman and Wonder Woman. Yes, is the execution of the relationship, has it been perfect? No. Can it be better? Yes, and I think that he really can make it better. With year one, how he introduced, actually, with an interview, Clark and Diana was supposed to have like a moment of, it wasn't just supposed to be a kiss on the forehead. It was supposed to be more than that. But of
Yeah.
course,
It does seem kind
editorial,
of random with that. I'm like, judging by the theme of the book, which is which is Clark basically getting with any woman he can find. That's the theme of the book. It's not me saying that. It's like, so he makes out with the mermaid. He kind of kisses Lois. He has a full on relationship with Lana. He just kisses Diana on the forehead. Doesn't make sense.
yeah, and then at the end he calls Diana his queen.
Yeah, I'm like,
So
wait a second. You just met her
you just met her.
literally 5 seconds ago.
But she says, come back to me or whatever like that.
My sweet
So
Adonis. And I'm like, what the heck?
yeah, this, you can tell basically a lot of what's cut out, because yeah, where did this come from? Um, so with that said though, Frank Miller is supposed to have a Dark Knight 4, and he is supposed to have, I think his contract for DC was a 5-book deal. So he had The Last Crusade or something like that for Batman. He had Golden Child. He has a Carrie Kelly YA novel. So his last two, or so, is supposed to be Dark Knight 4 and um I think it's supposed to be a Trinity. It's a Trinity story set in um World War II.
Yeah, that'd be cool, actually. By the way, so I have the actual All Star Frank Miller Superman book in front of me. So what happens is that Diana goes, "You boy, you sweet little Adonis, go become a man, then come back for me." And then he says he leaves his Amazon queen behind him and a big chunk of himself in her. And I'm like, yeah, you obviously cut something out because this doesn't follow.
Yeah, they definitely was like supposed to have a moment, and then, you know, yeah, that it definitely implied a lot without showing it. Um, they could easily have that, if they ever collected in a deluxe edition or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And his partner now, Raphael Grandpa, I love his art,
Oh yes, his
and
Batman book is incredible.
have his the promotion for that book,
Mm-hmm.
the movie
Oh,
cinematic,
they
video.
need to do that more because that is an eye catcher. I thought it was an animated series that they were announcing, and I'm like, this is for a comic book. This is awesome.
He is so talented and so creative. That is the most creative it, anyone has been.
Mm-hmm.
And he you can really tell how you know he is so ingrained, within his storytelling. And yeah, he did animation for Carrie Kelly
Mm-hmm.
for Golden Child too. And I wish he would have done um Laura and Jonathan. Hopefully, if um Dark Knight 4, if he's, collaborating with that too, that he does. But yeah, that would be so um really neat if he basically takes on um the Dark Knight universe. Or, well, actually, his um his story is actually set, I think it's Earth 45. And from his Instagram, um I actually read that he does have plans for a Superman story. So I think that after this story, he actually will do a Superman story set
Yes, please.
with this story. Yeah, set.
Yes, please.
Yeah, he
Grandpa
said that
is one of
he
those
has.
creators that you can tell he really has fun with what he does.
Yes, he also posted, plans being made, and he was with Jim Lee and Frank Miller. I think,
Ooh, could we
yeah,
get a sequel to this, baby?
yeah. So I think that, well, that will be Dark Knight 4. So I think
Heck
that will
yeah.
be it. Yeah.
Heck
So
yeah,
I'm
because
definitely excited for that.
I would love Dark Knight 4 to be his art style. But anyway, so speaking of, so the one thing that Britt and I hate is bait and switches. And this next example is 100% a bait and switch. Hunter frickin' Prince. Okay,
Why?
so when this was announced, I posted on my Facebook, as a matter of fact. I was like, okay, cool. Are they actually going to bring back the relationship? No.
Right.
No, they didn't. They were like, okay, okay, so he honors Superman because the idea is that the Justice League's kids from the future come back to stop the apocalypse that's apparently caused by Wonder Woman. That's a cool as hell design. That's a cool as hell story concept. You had me in there. I read the book, and then it turns out that he's not the biological kid of Superman and Wonder Woman. He's the biological kid of Wonder Woman that was like basically Anakin Skywalker. There was no father, and then Superman raised him with John. That's why he has like Superman's cape. And I'm like, DC, you keep DC is one of those things where they keep giving you a hand. They're like essentially it's like
Dangling the
when
carrot.
you're drowning and then they're supposed to be giving you a hand, and then it's that meme where like as you go down they give you a high five. That's what that seems like.
Yes. And the thing is, when this was first announced, the character sheets were posted, and the person posted Hunter Kent at first, or
Yeah.
Hunter Prince Kent. And that is where the hype came from. But then I think a couple of days afterwards, it was edited to just be Hunter Prince. And Hitch, the writer, he actually said that this story was very heavily edited.
Oh, I didn't know that.
especially
Oh God.
it's especially Hunter's background.
Oh boy. So you mean
And
he originally wanted to be the biological kid of Superman, but editorial said no?
I honestly believe so. And this was actually right after Reborn too, I think. So
Yeah, it is.
he
Judging by yes, it is because you can tell because that belt that Superman is wearing with the yellow buckle that's from Reborn. That's from after Reborn.
okay, so he and within when Hitch was doing the flashbacks of Hunter, at first when he's first introduced, Hunter can't fly. He
Mm-hmm.
is like, but then when you see his flashbacks, first he isn't with Clark. He's with like the Justice League kids in the Watchtower or whatever. He's
Mm-hmm.
flying. He's, it didn't really make sense. And Hitch was actually called out because Diana is she she's sexually assaulted. She's raped
Yeah, kind
by
of
this
by
darkness
this.
thing.
Yeah, essentially again like how Anakin Skywalker had no father; she was just impregnated, and I'm like, I get it. That's a cool story, but when you really think about it, it's like, oh,
And then she commits suicide.
mm-hmm. She
But
wouldn't
before
do
she com-
that.
Yeah, but before she commits suicide, she takes Hunter to Clark to raise him because she trusts him.
Mm-hmm.
And but within the story, it makes it seem like Hunter is like this nuisance, or this rebellious kid, difficult kid,
Mm-hmm.
and that basically takes in not for a friend, but as like a charity case or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and how it burdened Lois. Of course, she has to be play a role in it, even though she has nothing to do with this, and
Mm-hmm.
how Hunter really, it was basically make villainize Diana, but make Lois seem like the ultimate mother figure or whatever.
Of course.
And you also have him where he is like, Diana has Etta, and she has, Steve. But are you telling me that she only trusts Clark to take care of her son?
By the way, speaking of Steve, that was one of my favorite parts of this story. So Hunter meets Steve, and Steve goes, "So you're Wonder Woman's son? Who's the father?" And then Hunter goes, "Not
Not
you."
you.
I love that. That's one of my favorite parts of this story.
So honestly, what it feels like was that, and also Hitch did say that his JLA New 52 run, that was also edited um issue 10, when they
Mhm.
wanted to kill off New 52 Superman. But he actually had another arc where I think that this story came from, really originated from. So they
Mhm.
were going to go into the future or whatever like that. So, yeah, Hunter might have been New 52 Clark and Diana's son, but because of editorial, the status quo of, forcing and propping up rebirth status quo with Lois and John, that they opt out to change it to Hunter being the adoptive son of Clark and the real son of Diana. Because at the end, which doesn't make any sense, when they are saying, I hope to see you in the future and everything like that, it's like, Hunter, do you not realize that in order for Diana to like have you, whatever, this darkness thing,
I think what they
or
mean is that I hope that when you have that now that we've defeated the darkness, I'll be able to be born by normal means.
so, I mean, it's still the fact of with Clark though. His whole
Yeah.
character is still it, and then at the end, it's Clark with his hand around Diana's shoulder, and he says we can be better parents or something. It's like, yeah, this,
Yeah. I
yeah,
kind of, if this were not edited, this could have been an interesting moment where like Clark and Diana realize that they have feelings for each other, as has been written by actually you, as a matter of fact, in one of your earliest stories that I remember I checked out, where the child of Superman and Wonder Woman shows up, and it causes them to realize they have feelings for each other. Funny how that works.
yeah. I mean, even if he's from an alternate universe, again, the multiverse, but even if he isn't like not within the main line because of John or whatever, it's still the fact that Clark and Diana can have a kid somewhere else, or that they can have Hunter down the line. It's not it doesn't have to be just John. It can be Lois dies or whatever, sure. And they have Hunter. You could have made that work.
Mhm.
Or yes, if Reborn wasn't how it was, also actually Hitch did hint saying about legacy, and was referring to New 52 as in like the legacy wasn't re rebirth Superman's legacy, it was his legacy. So
Mhm.
I really don't want to reread that Justice League, because it would just tick me off even more of how it was handled. But to get those, I guess, hints or whatever of everything and make it make sense. I really do think that Hunter was supposed to be New 52's son, but like I said, because of editorial, they decided to change it and make it seem like he never existed.
That would be interesting to check out. But yeah, again, and first off, the storyline itself, actually, that entire Rebirth Justice League run, if you ignore the Lois Lane parts, is actually not that bad. It's actually pretty solid, and this is one of the examples of a really solid story that they did. Again, it's because, so I'm like, wait a second. He's not the biological son of Superman, but he has powers eerily similar to Superman. That's why there's a certain amount of editing that doesn't work with this, and I'm like, okay, I get, and that's why, Britt, to your point, I definitely like believe that he was originally supposed to be the biological son of Superman, because his powers are practically the same as Superman. Pretty much, he has, again, Golden Age Superman's powers.
And even even his suit
Mhm.
is basically New 52 Diana, because within Rebirth she changed and it's
Mhm.
all gold, but Hunter has on silver.
And
He
even it's a mix of Diana and Clark, because he has a T-shirt and basically jeans and a cape.
Yeah, and he also, I mean, big he's drawn to be like this big guy,
Mm-hmm.
even bigger than John. And he is, like I said, within his flashbacks, I think he also, yeah, he could fly. I don't know if he had heat vision, but I'm pretty sure he did. And more powers, that's like, okay, he's very much Clark's son. It's just that you want to say that he's adopted. It Again, the editorial editing or whatever was not that good. And the fact that Hitch actually, openly admitted it, and even the criticism that he got for the story, like with Diana, like even if you wanted him to, I don't know, she could have made him out of clay or something. But
Mm-hmm.
and because you're so stuck on this status quo, you would rather have Diana assaulted and commit suicide and villainize her for a status quo is just, I don't know, it's really weird. And then the
Or
thing is,
your female superhero that you highlight so much. This is why, again, this is what astounds me about Wonder Woman, is that she's brought through the ringer by DC editorial, and not in a good way, in a very bad way. And ignoring the fact that she is like one of the most famous female superheroes. She's one of the most iconic superheroes of all time. And yet your idea is to have her assaulted and then commit suicide. Nice.
Yeah. And then you have it where, um, I mean, all you had to do was have him, I guess, honestly, John, it, John and Lois it just didn't have to be, within the story at all. Um, Even with Hippolyta's, um, purpose within this story too. She was the villain too, weirdly enough. And you also have Barry and Jessica. They weren't actually a couple, but they had kids too, and it was like it was
They
no
were
problem with that.
actually. They were actually. In a
They
couple of
were.
arcs before that, they went on a date and actually became a couple. I think in like is either the arc before this or 2 arcs before this, but they were actually together at this point.
Okay, but
I
okay.
think so.
Well, so but no one really like ma- it's like pretty much the hype died off once finding out that Hunter was like the adopted and the whole thing with Diana and bringing in, like I said, bringing in Lois and John as like the perfect family, that Diana is an unfit mother. The
Mm-hmm.
hype, the hype pretty much, like I said, died off. And Hunter, his whole character pretty much just, it was just wasted potential,
It's
you
amazing
know?
how holding up Lois Lane kills DC's hype. It's funny how that
Yeah.
works. Next choice. All right, Zod from the Justice League Beyond universe, which this is an odd one because the thing about this is that this is a really odd universe, particularly with this pairing of SuperWonder, and I'm like,
Because
okay.
it's based on the JLU DCAU universe.
Mm-hmm.
And, that Diana is just such a disgrace
Yeah,
that
she's into the bad boys, and I'm like,
e- even within the story, she goes off because her the Batman that she knew didn't want her. So she goes off to the Lord universe, and she marries that Batman, Lord
Which then again,
Batman.
why would she go to the evil universe? I don't
Yeah.
understand that.
She goes to because that Batman supposedly, was the hero, you know.
And
And
obviously, it didn't work.
so yeah, so she marries him, and Lady Wonder Woman, she kills him. So in turn, this Wonder Woman kills her, which is again very disgraceful because you kill for a man. That is just so not Wonder Woman at all.
Mm-mm.
Um
Not even. Wait a second. Not even this version of Wonder Woman would do that.
yeah, and then she marries Lord Superman for political reasons to stop I think Brainiac's invasion,
Mm-hmm.
and they have little Zod in a like it's not the, natural way. He's a like a test tube baby.
Mm-hmm.
He is kidnapped and raised by Jax.
Mm-hmm.
Jaxar.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess he is teleported to the main Earth 12 or Earth 11, Earth 12 of, Batman, the Beyond universe.
Mm-hmm.
Um so she comes back And her first thing, I believe her first was trying to flirt with the older Batman, and she sees him older and everything, and I guess she's disappointed that he's older, but that's her main focus. But then she says she's looking for her son, and Zod wants nothing to do with her. So he actually goes with um the main Superman. He wants to live with him instead. And that Diana, she goes to live with I think she does, or it's kind of like implied that she goes to end up, you know, live with Batman, but not with him, just, there. So yeah, it's a very weird story, and it doesn't make Diana look any better. Um,
In a universe where arguably there's already a lot of character assassination on Diana because the creatives saw her as a one-note character.
yeah, so Batman Beyond DCAU was terrible for her, even within, and the fact that she has to have this. I mean, Little Zod has potential, as always, of a SuperWonder kid, but it's the fact that Diana's character is just not. She's not motherly. She is basically just chasing a man that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want her. She kills. She, you know, um, she self-pity. All of this that she does is just so wrong, and I don't understand why anyone would accept this. Why is DCAU? I know that, like we said,
Nostalgia. That's why, Britt. It's nostalgia.
yeah, you can be a fan, you can come in as a fan, whatever it is, but once you read the source material and the character, and then you see an adaptation that totally goes off kilter for from what this character represents, that is when you know that, okay, that's unacceptable.
Which, to
And
be
that's the
clear,
thing.
I like a lot of what the DCAU does. It does a lot of stuff well. Wonder Woman is not one of them.
Right. And that's the thing, is that with the Wonder Bat ship,
Oh God.
it that is the only thing that pretty much those shippers bring up, is DCAU. And the thing is, and
Mm-hmm.
and and it's that one scene of on the rooftop, and Bruce is like basically rejecting her, and it's played for laughs, but it's also played for, saying that basically Diana is desperate for to be chasing after Batman to make him look cool. It's like, no, that totally goes against Wonder Woman's character. Wonder Woman does not chase a man. Sure, her, first thing was being curious about Steve Trevor, but she was a young 18-year-old, still within that teenage mind. But as Golden Age Wonder Woman got a little older, it was Steve that was chasing after her, you know, and Marston's idea was that the man is more submissive, or whatever, to the woman.
Which, yeah, I've seen that, and it's like, okay, it's a little odd, but for a character that's supposed to be about gender equality, those early comics, either way, does it doesn't exactly feel very equal.
It doesn't, and that's the thing, is that the only actual equal relationship that, funnily enough,
Mm-hmm.
fans are against is Superman and Wonder Woman, which is actually the relationship of equality. But fans talk about, Diana's supposed to be with a mortal man to be stronger than him. She is supposed to be, even with Batman, to say that she can learn about humanity, from Batman. It's like, first of all,
You do not want to learn about Batman, about humanity from Batman. You
exactly,
know, no. He is the epitome of what the Amazons told you mankind is. And arguably, it's kind of
exactly,
funny. It's been said multiple times in the comics and movies. Superman is more human than Batman is.
right. And and that's the thing. It's like, when you say about Batman, and that's also the thing too, is that the current comics are basically having Bruce go insane. He is totally going,
Zoran off,
I
yeah.
mean, he's rejecting the Robins. He's,
Well, he's
um
not exactly rejecting the Robins, as the Robins are siding with an actual criminal and allowing crime to happen. And actually, there's this kind of funny part and recently came out where Red Hood of all people, Jason Todd is like, "You're letting crime happen. What are you doing?"
I think that the story probably made sense within the writers' heads
Yeah,
of how it, but the execution of it is just not,
is horrible.
sticking the landing at all.
Hmm.
And I get what the idea of crime, as in, like, okay, a bank robbery,
Hmm.
but no one's getting hurt.
Hmm.
I get that, like, something like that, something really petty. I get that, and it's kind of like Selena is trying to say, or she's basically like Robin Hood, as in steal from the rich, you know.
But inevitably, one of those criminals is going to become a rich person, so you're going to start stealing from them now. You're not stopping crime at all.
You're basically having it stagnant, and it's just going in circles.
You're arguably creating a situation where crime will never disappear from Gotham, which it never will either way. But you're creating a
Yeah.
solution to a problem that you're then perpetuating with that solution. It doesn't make sense. But so, speaking of bait and switch again, our final child that we're going to talk about is actually a concept that, by the way, the art from this is by Brett Booth, fantastic artist, by the way. His was one of the redeeming qualities of Teen Titans New 52 was his art, and Brit is the first person that told me about this. I didn't know about this concept, but the rumor was that Donna Troy was going to be the daughter of Superman and Wonder Woman.
Yes. So with this concept, on Brett Booth's his blog, which of course can't find it anymore, after it's either because of the years has gone by, or he, deleted it. But when this was coming about, on his blog, it was said that this was actually a rejected concept, art
Mm-hmm.
concept. So it pretty much confirmed, um, that Donna was going to be something, um, connected to Clark and Diana. And then you have the whiteboard. When DC would have a DC All Access, and they had the whiteboard of the plans, and they would tease it. Well, Donna was, it was Wally West, the original Wally West, and Donna, and they were teasing their comeback. And Donna was, at first, she was to be introduced in the Wonder Woman book, but then that was X'd out, and she was then arrowed to be introduced into Superman and Wonder Woman's book. And Charles Soule was right there with Dan DiDio when he was explaining it. And then that's when you had Futures in two, when Clark had the black and star, like, galactic suit.
Okay, yeah, the one I know exactly what you're talking about there. I can actually
Yes,
grab that.
when he was in that suit, it sort of hinted of, Donna's original black and starry uniform.
It's this
And bleeding,
right there.
right. And Bleeding Cool, they actually started, as they do, tease and hint hinted as well. And there was also a article that also teased it. So you have all these hints and teases of Donna returning and how she connects to Clark and Diana. And yeah, that is when the connection of, and you also have the teases of um, DC hinting of, so Superman and Wonder Woman having a child, how powerful will that kid be? You know, it all came together of, okay, Donna is going to be possibly their daughter.
Wow, that's incredible. And it would have been because first off, Donna Troy is one of those characters with DC that has had like a multitude of story of origins, and it's ridiculous. But this would have been like the most straightforward one to bring out. Okay, she's the daughter of Superman and Wonder Woman. That's great. What you could have done, you could have had her come in from the future. And she decides to hang out here, and then obviously get to know her parents, because you could have it where like Superman and Wonder Woman are dead in her future, so she comes back to possibly save them and stop the circumstances, and she does that, and she's like, okay, you know what? I think I'm gonna hang out here and just hang around, and then you have Donna Troy in the DCU. Maybe she joins the Titans, but you also have in the Superman and Wonder Woman book, Diana and Clark all of a sudden realizing, hey, we should hang out with our daughter because she is our kid.
Yeah. Even Helena
Mm-hmm.
Wayne right now with Jeff Johns, she is time displaced.
Mm-hmm.
She is written to be Bruce's, like, long lost cousin or something like that, or a cousin visiting,
Mm-hmm.
but she is within the main DCU. So that's the same thing that could have happened with Donna is, like you said, from the future, a, dead future, and she comes here, or comes to that present, and she stays. That pretty much makes for an interesting story, and, you know, does away with all the, you know, convoluted, um, within her history. And it would be much better than, even though the Finches were basically editorial, again, editorial is like the enemy or the villain
Mm-hmm.
of how she was introduced to be a weapon
Mm-hmm.
against Diana. She
Oh
was,
God, I
yeah,
remember
she
that.
was supposed to be, yeah, she was created to be a weapon against Diana because Diana chose to be protector of man's world, and the Amazons were being still like the um man haters or whatever, and killing the Manazons,
The Sons of
the sons
Lycia,
of,
or like however you pronounce that. It's a Greek name. I don't know.
yeah. And I mean, that whole thing was just unnecessary, and more character assassination. And then within the same time that Donna was introduced within the Wonder Woman book, Wonder Star was introduced with Tomasi.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, of course, everyone was speculating that Wonder Star was their son, because you have his name is Wonder Star.
Yeah.
Wonder for Wonder Woman, and then Star, Cal is the voice of God, but also the Star Child.
Hmm.
So you have Wonder Star, and his suit and everything is basically like Wonder Woman's golden, her golden suit, and yeah, it's just everything was not done in a very, um, I would say, whatever they were trying to hide, if you look through the cracks, you can see the answers right there of a lot of editorial changes, a lot of, what could have been with Superman and Wonder Woman, and how it was just totally mishandled.
Yep, pretty much. But so yeah, so that's in that presentation. But the thing about this is that yeah, the the kids of these characters, that's a concept that has been explored in a lot of different ways. And the thing about it is that you brought it up. Yeah, it's a concept that should be easy to execute because the whole idea of Superman and Wonder Woman's relationship is easy to execute. But when you don't, you what's the word? When you don't live up to the hype, if you will, that itself is like it's bad. Well, let me put it to you that way. And the thing that I want to leave you guys with this with this discussion is that here's the thing about the children of Superman and Wonder Woman. You have literally the a very if you wanted to do like a future state idea about the kids taking over, can you imagine how what the story would have been like if it were the kids of Superman and Wonder Woman, if it's like the Kingdom Come kids or like Donna Troy or such.
Yeah, that would be like the whole theme of Superman and Wonder Woman's kids are that they are of a different divinity, entity of their own. They create something new. Their powers are unpredictable. So yeah, you want to explore those different avenues, and they aren't just Superman and Wonder Woman's kids, but they also, you know, bring forth something new and unique with John. His whole character is just to be the next Superman. But Superman pretty much will never die with Clark Cal.
Mm-hmm.
Clark Kent Clark Kent will die before Superman dies
Well, and
or
here's the other
Cal
thing.
dies.
If anything, John Kent will probably die before Clark does because John is half human.
And the way he's aged up and the way he's drawn now, he's drawn to look like he's about 25, you know?
He keeps aging. And the thing
So,
about it, I remember Tom Taylor tried to make me think that John was stronger than Clark. And I go, I'm not a biologist, but I'm pretty sure diluted DNA is not as good as pure DNA. And what I mean by that is because he is half human, so and humans are weaker than Kryptonians, therefore he should be weaker than Clark.
they were really going um basically with the Dragon Ball Z Gohan type
Hmm.
idea, which or even just the half human trope period of kids like supposed to be the chosen ones or something like that. But John, he doesn't have a personality of his own. He doesn't have anything unique to make him like this chosen one or whatever. So yeah, he's much weaker. He he just doesn't really bring anything new, especially that he's so redundant to Kara and Connor. That
Hmm. Now
even
he's
with
even
the
more
twins,
redundant with the War World twins.
yeah, even with the twins, it's kind of like they were supposed to be something different too, but now they are just like regular Kryptonians with, you know, with the same powers. And we already discussed this last weekend of how they're supposedly normal now without exploring or glossing over their traumatizing experience of being on War World. So yeah, that that's that. And then you have Trinity, which uh, I really, her concept to me, you know, I don't know. She just doesn't, well, first her design is very bland.
And then
And
her reason for existing, to quote Tom King, was because Batman and Superman have kids. Wonder Woman should have kids. Says who?
and also the idea was wanting the Super Sons to babysit, just babysit. That was the idea.
That's
And they were
the.
supposed to
Mhm.
and they were supposed to just babysit Mr. Miracle and uh Barda's son that Tom King introduced in his Mr. Miracle run. Yeah, they were supposed to, I guess he had the story. I don't know if it was shot down by editorial or it was just talked about.
Probably was.
So it was like, oh man, I should have done it. And instead of doing a Mr. Miracle, sequel, he just made up Trinity. And even still, her name Trinity, you automatically think of Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman instead of her
Which
as a
I get it is
character.
because she has three lassos. Which who needs three lassos? That's the first part. I'm
Even
really
still,
confused
nobody,
about. Yeah, go
right?
ahead.
Even still, nobody thinks of Trinity as three lassos, though.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the
not
thing.
at all.
In context of DC, I'm sorry, dude. And plus, here's the thing: she didn't have that good of a debut because of people saw her as insufferable. And the thing is, I get that that's her in the future, and she has to go through a character arc. That's why you shouldn't have done it that way. You really shouldn't have done it that way. If that's you just gave people a really bad first impression.
I mean, she, Diana, she's not developed as a
Mm-hmm.
character, um, to be a mother yet.
Mm-mm.
So trying to force a kid on her now when her her supporting cast, she doesn't have a solid relationship with her original supporting cast in the first place. And even with the Wonder Girls, she doesn't have a solid relationship with none of them. Yara, you barely see her with Yara. Um,
Well, the other
Donna
thing
is
is the best time to have done this would be in the new 52 when an arc ends with her saying talking about how like baby Zeus or Zeke as he was called then was probably the last chance she would have to have children of her own, and I'm like, put that in there.
yeah, baby Zeus was, well, baby Zeke.
Hmm.
Well, first that was just weird that Zeus was that was the weirdest
Yeah,
thing of
it
him.
was weird, but still, I'm like, that would have been the most logical place to slot that idea in.
But baby Zeke was something, and then the ending of the Finches run where she, you know, um, went through Tartarus and she was dreaming or something about having a child with Clark, and then you know even within the Rebirth run and her year and a half or so with Steve, it was like that whole thing with even with Steve was having you know, a personal life like that. She didn't think of it. Like
Well, plus
it
also,
wasn't an option.
Steve only thought of himself when he's like, "Why won't you
Right.
be with me?" I understand that you're saving other like worlds and the entire freaking multiverse, but you have to be with me. I have to be your priority because I'm too insecure about myself.
Right. What was so funny too was that Steve, how Rebirth framed their relationship was that, well, it was Rucka, but it was like Diana wasn't in love with Clark. It was just an easy relationship and she's not good with love. But
Mhm.
but then with Steve, it was like having a relationship of, settling down was not an option. It was like she didn't want it. She didn't want that with Steve, but
And
she
it's
wanted it with
like
Clark.
it's yeah, it's it didn't make sense. And it's like the other thing is that with Steve, you're a Navy SEAL, dude. You know if anyone should understand her being away from life, from home, because she's out saving the world, you should.
Right.
You should. And
So
I'm
now,
like, what?
so now you have, and then within the second issue too, Steve walked away from her. He, at the end of the issue, he like had this smirk of, secretly rooting for her, but it showed that he wasn't really on her side in front of her, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
that with the narrative or the monologuing of the Wonder Woman book is said within the perspective of Sovereign, the main villain, the king or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And he says that basically Trinity's story is a sad tale. So, and Diana didn't tell her of how she was born. So we already know that her birth or whatever is sad and it's kept a secret, as in like it's, and the way he says it is framed as like, well, telling Trinity the truth will hurt her, will hurt Diana.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically her whole entire her existence is for Tom King to have his super sons babysitting. But Diana as a mother, I just don't, it's going to be very depressing, or it's basically like another Hunter, where is something within a villain, you know, Diana having this kid with a villain and trying to keep it a secret or something like that. So guaranteed, Trinity Lizzie isn't going to have much of a, exist for very long. It's just the fact that the story that's being told is kind of pointless and a waste of time when Bruce had Damien, out of love for Talia before the Grant Morrison retcon.
And
Um,
Clark had John because he some reason felt a romantic attraction to Lois.
and he, well, John's whole thing is, a cluster,
Mm-hmm.
of messing up history anyway. So yeah, that's a mess. But Trinity, though, you have two issues that of her, of Diana, just fighting um
Stuff.
Steel
Mm-hmm.
and fighting these normal army dudes, but and even the solicitations of the book, it doesn't really show where in that is she supposed to have Trinity. Where is she supposed to come in at? You
Well,
know,
issue
it
3 is supposed to be when she is introduced, but still, I'm like, because the
so
entire point of this run is to lead to Trinity's birth, apparently.
so how is she introduced in issue 3? So that means that she is, it, well, she has the lasso of lies,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which is Sovereign had it. So was she created from Sovereign
Oh
and
no!
Diana?
You're gonna give me nightmares right now, Britt.
I mean, that's the only way to say that she's introduced in issue 3 when clearly Diana isn't, having a child. So it has to be something to where she is created, not actually naturally born, you know. And even
That's my thing. I think that they'll do the whole clay origin for Trinity.
that would make sense. And I mean, I guess that would work, but still, I mean, like we said, her introduction wasn't good, and her whole existence is just, it isn't for Diana, it's for Jon and Damien to babysit. So the mother-daughter type relationship that, you know, supposed to be, Diana doesn't even have that mother-daughter
Yeah.
mentor mentee with the other Wonder Girls.
Well, yeah, and that's a big problem with the Wonder Woman editorial, because here's the thing: they brought in Yara, and she's like one of the she was one of the highlights of Future State. Everyone was hyped to see more of her, and then they do nothing with the character. That's my big issue here. They're trying to with the unfortunately named Amazon's attack, which I'm like, this didn't go well the last time. But the thing is, they bring in Yara. She is universally loved. First off, DC cancels her series then, and then they do literally nothing with her, even though she's a Wonder Girl. And I'm like, and arguably it's like, but also King did confirm that like the Wonder Girls, I think from issue 4, I want to say
Yeah,
4,
4.
are going to be involved in this. So maybe
But
he does something.
their involvement is to be against Diana though.
He
Like
said that?
the solicitation says
Oh
they
boy.
are trying to get Diana to be, basically back out of,
Mm.
surrender or whatever.
Oh, that. See, I want to like this run. I'm enjoying what I'm reading so far with Tom King's Wonder Woman. It's just
But the thing is, Tom King, he's a very much a writer of depression.
he's trying to be
So,
another Alan Moore.
and the thing is, he can write, miniseries, one shots, single issues, but for a long ongoing, and sometimes the characters, it's more so that he changes the characters to fit his story than writing the story for the character, you know.
Hmm.
And Diana, she is very stiff. The art is great,
Yeah, I mean, I love
her.
that one preview that Zampera put out of her like deflecting bullets and she's like yawning. I'm like, yeah, that's great. I love that.
That's very Diana,
Hmm.
but the dialogue and everything is very stiff, and some of the character, even with Steve, his character, if you want to make it seem like how it was supposed to be, him, the way he was cussing at Diana, the way he was basically saying that you're going against the whole army, like she's Wonder Woman,
She's done that
take
before.
down
What are you talking about?
she can take down the army. How he's been in wars and stuff like that.
So is
You
she, first
basically,
off.
and then you're basically patronizing her and belittling Dr. Psycho. I mean, how can you do that? And then you walk away from her and you are basically like Steele's lapdog, you know. And
Yeah. Well, then again, DC has never known what to do with Steve
with
because
Steve,
he is kind of out of place with the Wonder Woman family.
and you also have this where you want them to be romantic, but again, Steve is within the military, and that just doesn't work with modern times. If
Mm-mm.
Diana is going against the military, why would she be with someone within the military?
Yeah, it
And
just
how
doesn't make sense.
and the fact that Steve admitted to be within the wars, and how he's engaged with the problematic, you know, things that the military has done. So again, why would Diana want to be with someone who has engaged within that? That doesn't make any sense. And I think Tom King did say that again, they're still trying to play this. They want to be together but can't be. So, um,
Hmm.
but even in issue 2 that really didn't show, like the art didn't convey that. They they didn't convey any you know, sense of familiarity. It was that, yeah, sure, they had a past, but it didn't say as in romantic past. It was basically like they were just friends, you know, with no, just knowing each other, like they were colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
But even in the first issue of them walking together too, it was basically like a friends talking. It wasn't a um, I once loved you type thing, you know. So yeah,
It's not even
just this
friends.
whole thing.
It's about a dude trying to patronize a woman. That's what kind of what it sounded like.
Yeah, that is what this is. And like I said, with Trinity, I really don't know. Her first her first introduction wasn't good.
Mm-mm.
The fan reception already, even the first announcement of her compared to Yara was her design was very good. It was just the fact that editorial messed up
Mm-hmm.
with her with the writing of her. You know, instead of bringing in a Brazilian writer and artist to um understand the culture, you know, they pretty much insulted the culture instead. So that's what ruined her character. And then the fact that the 5G um, future state thing didn't work out. So yeah, they didn't have a backup plan.
Mm-hmm.
So Yara is stuck in limbo. But Trinity, her her uniform is a concept of basically all the Wonder Girls. Like she has the um bodysuit, you know, leggings and all that from I think from Donna. And then she has the breastplate, the whatever from Yara, and just the fact that it's just a casual look is from Cassie.
Mm-hmm.
And her hair being brown and in a ponytail is like Artemis. And then the three lassos or the, you know, lasso thing is from Diana. And the tiara is from Diana too. But yeah, she really doesn't have anything to stand out. Even with kind of like fan art, which she doesn't really have much of, but it doesn't translate right. Like it's just something about it that's just so bland.
It does to a degree kind of come off as bland, and it shouldn't because this is a interesting idea. The daughter of Superman and Wonder. Well, we hope it's Superman and Wonder Woman. It probably won't be, but it's the daughter of Wonder Woman. So I'm
Wonder
like,
Woman.
yeah, exactly. So I'm like, okay,
She should
but
be interesting, but she's not.
yeah, exactly. It's a concept. This is the problem that DC has. They have a lot of really great concepts, but the execution is just really, really bad.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Superman and Wonder Woman as a couple, as parents, having kids, their kids would be fantastic as concepts. And it would bring in fans because even general audiences talk about, you know, what if Superman and Wonder Woman had kids? That kid would be powerful. And to actually capitalize on that, to show that, would help DC, you know, instead of trying to regurgitate the same storylines, trying to, you know, paint over this old house that need repairs. Why not just go outside the box and, you know, find writers that also has the passion to um, you know, execute these stories correctly in a more interesting way and get the fans back invested. You know, DC, they are basically shooting themselves in the foot constantly because instead of taking the risk that New 52 brought, they want to stay within these like self boundaries of especially Twitter. Because if Twitter, we've talked about this, Twitter is like DC's worst enemy.
Yes, it
That
is.
they don't buy the books.
Mm-mm.
They, you know, you see that it's like dead silent on Tuesdays, unless Bleeding Cool like
Leak something.
posts leak something, it is dead silent on the DC Twitter until those pirating sites upload the books. And then it can be Tuesday can pass by, maybe mid Wednesday, maybe a book or two will be, you can tell that a book or two was uploaded to the pirate site, but then say by Thursday, that is when some of the groups are talking. And it's like, oh, okay, so the books are now finally uploaded. Or they actually admitted saying that when are these books gonna be, come up on the sites? And it's like the fact that they feel entitled and are so comfortable openly admitting about pirating these books. And
Yeah, it's
but then
ridiculous.
right, but then you want, the books that they claim that they love, when they're canceled, they want to rant at DC, and then how does that make us feel that within the New 52 we supported the books, we actually bought them, but DC wants to, alienate this fan base though.
Yep. And that's the astounding part, and that's why DC will continue to be number 2 to Marvel, and that's hard to do when Marvel is in the space that they're at. But we're
Right.
gonna wrap this baby up in a little bow, pun intended. So, let us know below who your favorite child of Superman and Wonder Woman is, and how would you handle a super kid, if you will. So, Britt, can you tease us about any potential stories coming out?
Okay, so as far as solos that I'm writing, so I've finally, piece by piece, getting all the requests and one shots or, chapters done. So I think probably within the Thanksgiving, holiday, that vacation, I can upload, just do a massive upload of a lot of stories that I kind of neglected for a while. Then I have a new one shot that, all my stories are um inspired by songs. So this story is inspired by the seasons, fall, um,
Mm-hmm.
winter, spring, and summer. And it's basically Clark and Diana, certain things that go on within the seasons of, it's either a conflict like that they have to go through, or it's something, really, really sweet and nice and everything like that.
That works.
Then it's also another little one shot that they um really, really busy, and but they are going to the next step of their relationship, and once they finally have a moment to talk about it, you know it's just a very peaceful, relaxing moment of them just, chilling and relaxing. And then we have our story that I'm very, very excited to be collaborating with you,
Oh, this is
because
gonna be epic.
the emotional toll,
Yes.
roller coaster
Again, our
that
group chat, the chat I have with Britt on Twitter, it's just every time I post, hey, we could do this. Here's some ideas I have for this. I just see crying emojis all the way down.
the the emotional roller coaster that you have me on is insane because we can go from I can go from low bawling, like crying, ugly cry, to this sweet, happy, all smiley, heart eyes type feeling, and right back down to the ugly cry. And it is such a very good story. And I love the back and forth that we are having with this. I'm loving the ideas that just come about. And yeah, the hey, what about this, and how we can just, go back and forth with it, and how we can fit it into, this story so well. And I just can't wait for us to be able to share it with,
Oh, it's gonna
you
be
know,
dope, and we'll promote it.
everyone.
We may even do an entire episode on it, and that should be, I think, a really cool promotional wise. But yeah,
Yes.
and so basically, I'm in the middle of writing a kick-ass action scene for that, and writing an action scene for my comic Athena. So I'm on double duty here. So I'm going back and forth between two universes, and it is awesome.
Yes.
So,
And I can't wait
hmm?
for that action scene.
Oh, it's gonna be dope. So on that note, everyone, stay heroic, and we'll be sure to see you in the next one. Thanks.